It is 6:04 p.m. and I'm calling the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember James. Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May.
Here.
Councilmember Mikulski.
Here.
Councilmember Polika.
Here.
And Mayor Piana.
Here. And Councilwoman James is just arriving late, correct?
No, Councilwoman James did request to be excused.
Okay, can we have an excuse or an excused absence for Councilwoman James?
I move to excuse Councilwoman James from this evening's meetings.
Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May.
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski.
Yes.
Councilmember Polika.
Yes.
And Mayor Piana.
Yes. Next up is the approval of the agenda, and we have one change, I think.
Yes, I would like to approve the agenda with the exception of item 6A, the condition of a consideration of a conditional rezoning of 415 Hilton due to insufficient materials within the packet.
Support.
Support? Oops, I can't do that. Moved by Polika, supported by Mayor Pro Tem.
How long have you been doing this job?
Madam Clerk, please.
Councilmember Mikulski.
Yes.
Councilmember Polika.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks James.
Yes.
And Leaks May. And Mayor Piana.
Yes. Next up is electronic meeting procedures. We have a year-end update. We have two meetings tonight, folks. We have a 6 o'clock and a 7 o'clock, and there is a year-end update on Council's temporary rules of procedure for electronic meetings at that time, which will be addressed at our 7 o'clock meeting. Next up is call to audience, and we do call to audience starting in the chambers. We have a hybrid process. We start with the chambers, and then our assistant city manager manages people raising their hands via Zoom with the blue hand raisers and folks calling in. So we're going to start with the people who are in the audience, and welcome Rabbi Finman tonight to our chamber.
Thank you very much for offering this opportunity. My presentation was actually supposed to be, as I was told, part of the agenda for the next 7 o'clock meeting, but because of the clerk McGrath having a death in the family, and our condolences go to her and her family, and her family should know only from joyous occasions from now on. 5 years ago, I stood before this august body, and I believe Her Honor the Mayor was a council person at that time. We spoke about having and erecting a menorah on public property. And the arguments then were hashed out as to the legality, and we brought up how this issue had been already argued in the courts, with several Supreme Court decisions already having been handed down in favor of them. Those included City of Grand Rapids versus Chabad, City of Pittsburgh versus ACLU, and in these landmark decisions, it was determined that the symbol of the menorah is not a religious symbol, but a symbol of religious freedom. At that time, 5 years ago, we requested to be able to erect such a menorah on public property in Ferndale, and by a 5-0 decision, we were granted that permission, and for several years, we did erect a menorah on the front of the Kulik Center. After several years, we purchased our own property, and we put a menorah on our own property now, and we had the the distinction and honor of having Her Honor the Mayor actually address our crowd this year. The idea of a public menorah has become, even more so in the last 5 years, a ubiquitous symbol of religious freedom. All over the world, menorahs are being lit in public to show that people have a right to stand up for their beliefs, and it's done so specifically with a menorah, which the menorah is a symbol of light. Light is a symbol that brings hope. I received an email even that the Ferndale Beautification Commission is now sponsoring an action where they're giving out 8 electric candles to people for hope and light. The number 8 struck me because that's the number of candles on a menorah. The whole concept of having a menorah is to make people feel included. We have been very welcome. We are very impressed with the administration in Ferndale. We're very impressed the way in which Ferndale has officially greeted us and helped us. The day after the City Council gave our approval, so then Fire Chief Kevin Sullivan and I erected the menorah. He came to me and said, I want to help you as an official capacity. Ferndale has something called the Ferndale Inclusion Network, which Jewish Ferndale is part of. And we know that there is this desire in Ferndale, the official policy is to make everybody feel included. What the Supreme Court decision in Allegheny versus ACLU stipulates is that if there are other symbols that are erected at a specific holiday time, there has to be equal footing allotted to others who would like to have such symbols also represented. This was not an issue. Last year, in front of the dot, there was a giant snowman, and snowman is not a religious symbol. And it happened to be me who noticed on a Thursday morning during a 30-mile-an-hour windstorm that the snowman broke loose and was headed for Troy and Woodward, and it was Ferndale's finest who came to the aid of the snowman and tracked him down and brought him back to his original place. But this year, Ferndale did not put up a snowman. Ferndale put up a Christmas tree. Even though I've heard that this tree was referred to as a holiday tree, but everybody that I ever talked to and everybody I asked referred to it as a Christmas tree. So what I'm asking and petitioning the city is that those same people who put up the Christmas tree be allowed and asked to put up a menorah as well. We could say that Hanukkah is over, but the Hanukkah season is not over yet. You'll drive by 9 Mile and Pinecrest, you'll see our menorah will be lit up until January 2nd, because that's the holiday season. So given the permission, we could have a menorah erected near the Christmas tree tomorrow. And this is what I'm requesting that the City Council now discuss. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi. For call to council, we don't usually debate and or discuss items, call to audience, debate items. But I would say that that this policy was developed under former Coulter and that council body, and that the former holiday tree lighting was in the middle of Woodward. There had been years of a tree being lighted in the middle of Woodward, and it was relocated to the dot this year as part of our sort of temporary event space that the dot is. I think that this policy took a lot of time and effort to create. It goes through the ordinance committee, and I think that at this time we would probably need to take a step back and say, is this policy still relevant? what, if anything, needs to be adapted or changed. Because this is about all religions, not just the menorah that we're trying to manage here in the city of Ferndale. Because the city does get a lot of requests, and so we're trying to make sure that we are fair and appropriate in following the law, freedom of speech laws, as well as supporting religion. And so we try to be a very good partner with our religious institutions here, but this is a technical, legal ordinance that needs to be reviewed. And I would say that perhaps we could bring in Senator Moss. He's offered to help navigate and discuss with us, is there another solution at all in here that would help satisfy Rabbi Finman's request? Is that something that we can at least take a look at and step back on? To the city manager.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm completely open to revisiting the policy and being more inclusive with Senator Moss. Had to be open to that in the new year.
So while we will take a look at this and review it again and go through our ordinance, it is a different body, council body. I can't guarantee anything will be different going forward, but I can commit to reviewing the policy with council and staff and seeing what other cities are doing to manage the balance here of freedom of speech, religion, and making sure that we're fair to all religions in the city of Ferndale. Thank you, Rabbi.
I just might add, but menorahs were lit in the greater Detroit area on public property in downtown Detroit, downtown Royal Oak, downtown Troy, downtown Farmington, downtown Southfield, downtown Flint, and I believe in downtown Birmingham.
I hear you. So this is why we'll take a step back and take a review of the policy.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are moving on next to our first item, which is 6A, approval of the project year 2022 Community Development Block Grant CDBG application to fund eligible projects. And who is presenting that tonight?
Through the chair, I believe CD Director Jordan Torty is available.
Good evening, Jordan.
Hi, Mayor, Council, City Manager, members of the public. Good evening. I definitely am ready to present this item. And so what you have here, every year we come about this time, usually in November, but with staff transitions, we were a little delayed this time around. We come with our annual application for CDBG funds. So I won't read everything in the packet, but I'll just briefly summarize. We get about $90,000 each year from the Housing and Urban Development Department of the federal government, and that is administered for us by Oakland County. And the most succinct way I could say it is funding that is dedicated for a specific list of projects provided by HUD in areas that are predominantly low to moderate income. So all of those terms have attached to them standards that are developed by HUD, but the bottom line is these dollars are meant to provide improvements through programs, through physical improvements for those neighborhoods. And so what you see in this application is our proposal for how to spend this year's program funds. And so a note to have with CDBG is we're always about a year behind. That's because the process starts with us applying, then those funds are released sometime in the next calendar year, and then we have about a year to spend those funds. And so that's all tracked with Oakland County and HUD, and we're always working with about 2 program years of funding at any given time. And so what you see in here is we're allowed to do, and these are rules set by Oakland County in their administration of these funds, we're allowed to do up to 4 projects. And so what you see here is, excuse me, we're looking to finally launch our minor home repair program to the tune of $65,000. We had some delays, again, with all the staff changes at CED. We weren't able to get this project off the ground in the previous program year, but we have those funds available for this as well. So $65,000 here, and what it'll be will be projects of $5,000 or less. Now that's, again, that's a number set by HUD and Oakland County. So $5,000 or less for owner-occupied homes, and the idea would be to focus on critical infrastructure for the house, roof repairs, water heaters, furnaces, etc. And so our goal with this would be, if approved, we would manage this through a vendor. So our staff has been working on a draft request for proposals that, if this is approved, we would release that request for proposals and look to have this program launched in the spring of 2022. We're very excited about that. We've heard a lot of feedback in the planned Ferndale conversations about the need for this from an affordable housing lens, and just from a frank need sense. A lot of our housing stock is older, and we want to provide this round of assistance to help with those repairs. We are also looking at a similar approach to food banks. We're looking, it's a newer program, feedback around COVID-19 recovery, feedback just again in planned Ferndale, and just community conversation. We saw this as an opportunity to assist, and so what we would do is fund a community food assistance program, and it would be focused on the Ferndale community. However, and this is tied to HUD, there will be no income or residency requirements or proof required of participants. So what we would do is release these funds. We're expecting to have the funds released by January 30th of 2022. I believe that's a typo. I apologize for that. And what we're going to be doing is solicit bids from food assistance providers, and we're going to select a qualified provider to utilize the funds as soon as they're made available. So that'd be another one that we would look to install this spring. These last two programs are mainstays that we've done in the city for years. Yard services, we're looking to allocate $10,000. That's a partnership with the Oakland Livingston Human Services Agency. And so, excuse me, we support about 32 residents with these funds each year, and this provides lawn mowing, leaf raking, and snow removal for seniors who are 62 and over, and or disabled adults 18 and over. And so again, last year we provided services to 32, and the average is about 30, give or take 5 to 10 each year. The last category is victims of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. An allocation of $7,000. If approved, this funding, just like in previous years, would be managed by Oakland County through a contract with Haven, who served 52 residents with those services who had faced those circumstances in 2020. And what Haven does, again, they provide advocacy, counseling, forensic testing, medical care, and shelter. So all of those wraparound services are provided through Haven, and they make a little bit of money go a very, very long way. So they've been a very effective partner. And with that, attached to the item are the HUD income limits. So that gives you an idea of what they mean when they say low to moderate income. And then you also can see the cover page. That's part of the application. It just gives you a little bit of an inside look at how these things come together. So with that, if anybody has any questions, whether from the public through the public hearing or at council, I'm at your disposal.
Thank you, Jordan. I will now open the public hearing at 6:22. And starting with audience members to see if there's any comment in the audience. Seeing there's no one in the audience, we'll go to the assistant city manager, see if there's anybody online for public comment. All right, seeing no public comment is being offered up, I'm closing the public hearing at 6:23. Are there any questions from City Council?
Through the chair.
Oscar's allocation.
Jordan, how do we determine, and maybe I missed this, how do we determine the amounts? For example, the yard service for $10,000, the domestic violence funding for $7,000. Is this based just on previous donations, or do we determine based on previous year usage and the amount per person? I bring this up because if you look at yard service, $10,000 for 62 people is about $162. For domestic violence, 52 people being served $7,000, that's like a $135, maybe a little less. I'm not sure if there's a question in there. Is there a calculation that's determined? I mean, Does Haven say to us, if we could get, X amount of money per person, that supports the program? How are these numbers determined?
So that's actually a really great question, and there's really only one rule that sort of frames how staff comes up with these allocations. HUD and Oakland County have what they call a public services cap. So they will allow cities to spend up to 30% of their allocation on services. So if you look at yard services, victims of domestic violence, and food banks, that's just about 30% of the 92,000. And so that's usually where we start. So we usually, as staff, when we put these recommendations together, we talk each year with the vendors and the partners that we work with, and we max out the public service cap. We give the organizations as much as we can. And while they definitely could use more, and we would love to give them more, we are only able to go up to that 30%. We could certainly play with that. We could dial one up and dial another down, but that's one of the things that we've struggled with. One good thing about our execution is we've been able to spend the money efficiently, and that has allowed our allocation to go up. That's one of the variables that affects how much you get. About 5 years ago when I started here, we were getting about $70,000 a year, and so we've been able to see that slowly rise. That said, that's our biggest cap, council member, and beyond that, we split up the other funds based on the execution plan. So what we try to do is give, our best estimate at what a good amount would be to get the program off the ground. Minor home repair, we kind of looked at that as a priority given the feedback we've heard over the past couple of years in terms of giving that as much as possible. And then, we tend to look at a figure of 5,000 to 10,000 as a launch figure and an opportunity to make at minimum an effective short-term investment while providing a beachhead, if you will, for something longer term if we find value in the program experience. We try not to give, with the exception of minor home repair, we try not to give new ideas a ton of the allocation, because if for whatever reason the program doesn't work out, we would have to come back and amend our plan, and there's a whole process involved, so it's not exactly a quick turnaround. So hopefully that wasn't more than you wanted to hear, but that's generally the alchemy that goes into these calculations.
Okay.
May I add, I think what you're asking is $7,000, does it cover 52 residents for Haven?
Exactly. If you look at the 10,000, I know, I don't think any of this covers all the needs. I get that. But if you look at like the food bank, or not the food bank, the yard services, we almost doubled the amount of individuals who use yard services. Are we capping ourselves at 10,000, or if we put, another 5,000, could more seniors be serviced? Or does, if 20 more people came out of the program, we would still be able to provide the services with the $10,000? That's what I'm getting at, is I want to make sure that we're properly funding each of these programs to meet the need.
Yes. If I may, I think that the cap is 92,000. You have to break it down in any which way to hit 92,000, because that's our allocation. So if you take 5,000 out of one to put into another, you're decreasing that funding for that program that we're contributing to. So it really is, how much do we want to allocate to each program? And I think staff has done a very good job. And in many of these cases, we are just adding into, like Haven, they do fundraising to provide those services. We are just contributing, but not by no means the full amount, because our Cdbg doesn't allow us to do that. But we feel it's good, supportive enough through the 7,000. So, are there any other questions from council about the allocation this year?
I just have a comment. I'm pretty sure that typically over the last few years, the allocation amount's been about 5,000. So we did go up some to benefit Haven. So I was glad to hear that amount that had gone up, because I thought the 5,000 was low. But I appreciate the way in which the staff has allocated the funds, and like Mayor Fiona said, Haven does have many fundraisers. I know many of them that they have throughout the year, and people just kind of make fundraisers for them for their birthdays and things, so they do have other income coming in as well. I know that for a fact. So. That's it for me.
Through the chair, I do have another question. So for food banks, who determines which food banks receive funding? Because I know of dozens of food banks in Ferndale. Most of them are religion-based. So do we have specific food banks that we give to?
I can speak to that question, council member. What we would be doing is creating a request for proposals that food banks and food assistance providers would be able to competitively respond to, and in terms of being the primary partner. That doesn't necessarily preclude from having, sub partners and multiple parties to it, but basically that would be decided through the request for proposal process, wherein we would solicit responses from those who provide this service, and then partner with one or more to achieve the goals of the funding. And we would include those providers, and we would invite any providers in Ferndale to certainly respond to the request.
Thank you.
I think I had one follow-up question on that. I'm concerned that an RFP process for 10,000, I hope we don't make it lengthy and time-consuming for a food bank, but I know because you don't want to have the RFP process and proposal soak up, 20% of a $10,000, service fee. This one, I'm supportive of it, and I know that, to see how it goes for this year, because this is what the survey said in terms of how do we help out with the assistance from the recovery of the pandemic and support families in need. So I am, and Cdbg makes you report out stats and data of how the funds were spent and who was served. So I know that all of that data will be provided by any person or vendor that you select. But this one is, I'm curious about how this is going to really work. And my recommendation is don't make that RFP process onerous. Simple as possible. So.
Heard loud and clear, Mayor.
All right, seeing no more questions, we need a motion to proceed.
I motion to approve the funding recommendations submitted by the CED Department for the attached 2022 project year CDBG grant application in the amount of $92,102 from account 265-000-818-000 as submitted by the Assistant Building Official.
Moved by Polika and supported by Mikulski. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Mikulski?
Yes.
Councilmember Polika?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks-May?
Yes.
And Mayor Piana?
Yes. All right, next up is the consent agenda. I will read it and the council can decide what they would like. 7A, approval of the November 22nd, 2021 regular meeting minutes and December 2nd, 2022 facilities assessment workshop minutes. 7B, approval to extend the resolution authorizing affirmations as an alternate meeting location through July 1st, 2022. 7C, approval to adopt 2022 city meeting schedule and calendar. 7D, approval of on-call painting services for municipal facilities by Allied Building Service Company for up to $15,000 annually, with the expense charged to general fund facilities maintenance 101-265-931, and approval for DPW facilities manager to sign an agreement with Allied Building Service Company after approval by city attorney. 7E, approval to award low bid for tennis court resurfacing to Goddard Coatings in the estimated amount of $15,240, with the expense charged to general fund city parks capital outlay account number 101-750-977, and approval for DPW director to sign contract documents following approval by the city attorney. 7F, approval to purchase a Bobcat UW56 tool cat from Clark Equipment Company in the amount of $78,507.23 The expense to be charged to general fund, city parks, capital outlay, vehicles account number 101-750-977.500. It's a pretty cool looking Bobcat. 7G, approval of resolution for 2022 annual permit for work within the state trunk line right of way. 7H, approval of payment to Miss Dig System for the 2022 membership fee in the amount of $4,393.69. The expense charged to Water Sewer Fund membership and dues, account number 592-000-958. 7I, approval of reappointments to city boards and commissions. 7J, approval to pay Southeastern Equipment for skid steer repairs in the estimated amount of $30,275.44. The expense charged to general fund, public services, repair and maintenance, vehicles, account number 101-441-775.1. 7K, approval to submit application for the American Bloom CN Eco Connections Grant to receive up to $25,000 with a 1-to-1 match to be deducted from Park Bomb account 101-750-977-000. 7L, approval of the declaration and notice regarding the MDNR funds for the Geary Park Improvement Project and authorization for the mayor and city clerk to sign the document. 7M, approval of bills and payrolls as submitted by the city's manager's office and subject to review by the City Council Finance Committee. What is the pleasure of council?
Mayor, I move that we accept the consent agenda items as presented.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May and supported by Councilwoman Mikulski. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May.
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski.
Yes.
Councilmember Polika.
Yes.
Mayor Piana.
Yes. All right, folks, that concludes our consent agenda item tonight, and next we're on to call the council. But we are having a 7 o'clock meeting. I don't know if anybody wants to make their comments tonight or hold them to the end.
I'm holding.
All right. What about the department directors?
Through the chair, we'll speak at 7 o'clock.
Okay. All right. With that, it is 6:36, and I am adjourning the first meeting of December, which is the 6 p.m. At 6:36. We will see you for the 7 o'clock meeting in about 20 minutes or so, and we will start then.
Recording stopped.